Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking a rather intense look at a concept that I think, we all deal with, but we rarely actually question, and that is failure.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It is, right? We have this really fascinating stack of sources for this one, specifically some pretty dense analytical texts on cognitive structures, decision-making environments, and this philosophical framework known as reflective humanism.
Right.
And our mission today is to essentially just pull apart the word failure. We want to see if we can separate the actual event of something not working out from the really heavy, personal evaluation that we almost always attach to it.
It is a heady word. And the texts we're looking at today, they approach it not as a psychological flaw, but as a structural issue.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're exploring the difference between a path genuinely being closed forever and a path simply not being established under a very, very specific set of conditions.
I think we really need this because normally, when a project completely flops or, a new habit you've been trying to build just doesn't stick, we just sort of throw our hands up and say, well, I failed.
Right. It's an automatic reflex.
Exactly. It's a reflex. But everyday intuition pushes back on this whole idea, doesn't it? Like, if I set out to do something and the result is negative, wasn't it a failure? Isn't it that simple?
That intuition makes perfect sense, obviously. But the sources argue that it actually contains this massive structural flaw. Our everyday language kind of betrays us here.
How so?
Well, the word failure compresses two entirely distinct things into a single judgment. It takes an event and it welds it to an evaluation.
So we need to pull those two things apart. An event versus an evaluation.
Yeah, exactly. The sources outline a very specific, almost kind of invisible cognitive progression that happens in our minds.
Okay.
It starts with a neutral event. Step one is simply, I tried.
Right.
Step two is the observation, it did not become established.
It did not become established.
Right. That is the event. It is a factual, objective observation of reality. A business didn't launch, a relationship ended, a habit was broken. But the human mind rarely just stops at that neutral observation.
Oh, definitely not. We take that event and we immediately jump to step 3, which is I failed.
Yes.
And once we cross that line, it feels like this snowball effect just takes over.
It cascades incredibly fast. So I failed instantly morphs into my judgment was wrong.
Right.
And then from there, it drops into I am not suited for this.
Wow, yeah.
And finally, it lands on the ultimate conclusion, which is I should not try this again.
I should not try this again. So we go from this completely neutral observation of a past event, I tried a thing and it didn't work, all the way to a definitive statement about our core identity and our entire future.
Exactly. We evaluate ourselves completely out of existence.
But, to play devil's advocate for a second, isn't that just basic pattern recognition?
Every.
Well, if I try to learn, say, advanced calculus, and I absolutely could not do it, it seems entirely rational to conclude that I cannot do it. I have the data right in front of me. Right?
That leap from could not to cannot is the exact cognitive trap that the sources focus on.
Really?
Yeah. Notice what happens to the concept of time when you change that one single word.
Okay. Could not versus cannot.
Right. Could not do it is a closed event. It belongs entirely to the past, and it is restricted to a very specific, finite set of conditions that existed in that exact moment.
Like the fact that, I don't know, I was trying to learn calculus in a noisy dorm room while exhausted and stressed about 3 other classes.
Precisely. Those are the conditions of the could not.
Right.
But when you say cannot do it, you are making this massive generalization that extends infinitely into the future. You're taking a single observation from the past and projecting it forward forever.
Assuming that the conditions will always be exactly the same. Because I'm assuming that I am the only variable that matters. I assume that if my brain couldn't grasp it, then, well, my brain is the problem, therefore my brain will never grasp it.
Which completely ignores the reality of how things actually work in the world. One unsuccessful attempt cannot possibly reveal every future condition.
Yeah.
In the future, the environment will change. The institutional support you have might change.
Right. The teacher might be different.
Exactly. Collaborators will be different.
Yeah.
You yourself will evolve.
That actually brings up a really fascinating question about what it actually takes for something to work. Like, if my own inherent ability isn't the only thing determining success or failure, what exactly is happening behind the scenes when an endeavor actually does take root?
Well, the sources suggest something pretty radical here. They suggest abandoning the word success entirely.
Really? Entirely?
Yeah, for this very reason. They prefer the term establishment. Right. For a business to thrive or a habit to form or, a community project to get off the ground, multiple conditions must achieve a state of temporary alignment.
Temporary alignment. Okay, it sounds like planting a garden.
Okay. Yeah.
Like if I plant a seed and it doesn't sprout, I don't stand over the dirt and yell at the seed for being lazy or lacking moral fiber.
Right, right.
I look at the surrounding ecosystem. I ask if the soil was too acidic or if the sunlight was blocked by a tree or if I, tried to plant a summer crop in the dead of winter. The seed's actual ability to grow is really only one piece of the puzzle.
That is an excellent way to visualize it. And the sources list several specific conditions that must synchronize for human endeavors, just like your garden.
Okay, what are they?
There is ability, yes. But there's also time, resources, environment, relationships, institutions, timing, and expectations.
Wow, that's a lot of variables.
It is. Establishment requires all of those elements to temporarily align.
So what we normally label as failure is just non-establishment. It is simply the reality that some necessary conditions just did not align at that specific moment in time.
Exactly. It's a structural mismatch.
Okay, but I have to push back here, though, because I can just hear the alarm bells ringing for anyone listening who manages a team or runs a business.
Oh, sure.
Because if I drive a startup into bankruptcy,
Right.
I cannot look at my investors and say, well, the structural conditions of the universe just didn't align.
Right.
At some point, this starts to sound like a really sophisticated philosophical excuse to just never take responsibility for messing up.
And that is a crucial distinction we have to maintain here. Viewing outcomes structurally is not a permission slip to dodge accountability.
Okay.
Reflective humanism does not erase personal responsibility at all. Sometimes, going back to your analogy, the seed didn't grow because you literally forgot to water it.
Right. Or I chose to plant it in a parking lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes your judgment genuinely was poor. Sometimes your baseline ability truly was insufficient for the complexity of the task you took on.
Yeah.
Sometimes your planning was completely flawed, or your expectations were divorced from reality. We cannot use structural analysis as a shield against legitimate, verifiable mistakes. Sometimes you have to just cut your losses and withdraw, and that's the absolute right move.
Okay, that feels much more grounded. It doesn't eliminate the concept of a bad choice. It just says a bad choice isn't the only reason things fall apart.
Right. It asks us to look at the entire board. We acknowledge our own errors without immediately defaulting to self-condemnation as the only possible explanation for the non-establishment.
Yeah. Acknowledging that bad decisions do exist, though, brings up this massive tension in these sources. Because we live in a completely outcome-driven society,
We do.
it feels entirely rational to judge a decision by its outcome.
Yeah.
I mean, if a medical procedure goes horribly wrong, we assume the doctor made a bad call. If a military operation fails, the general made a bad strategic choice. It's almost this mathematical rule for us: bad outcome equals bad decision.
It is the most common mental trap we fall into. But we have to decouple the quality of the decision from the quality of the outcome.
Decouple them.
Yes, the outcome is incredibly important information, obviously, but it is an imperfect mirror of decision quality.
How do the sources break that down? Because intuitively, it's just so hard to accept that a good decision can lead to a disaster.
Well, they offer a literal equation to illustrate this disconnect.
Oh, really?
An equation.
Yeah, the equation is decision multiplied by environment, multiplied by other people, multiplied by chance, multiplied by time equals outcome.
Okay, wait, let me process that.
Yeah.
So decision times environment times other people times chance times time.
Right.
It feels like we usually treat life like a game of chess, where all the pieces are visible, there are no dice to roll, and if you lose, it is 100% because you made a bad move.
Right.
But this equation implies life is actually more like a game of poker. That is a brilliant way to frame it. Think about poker. You can make the statistically perfect decision. You calculate the odds, you read the table, you manage your chips flawlessly, and you can still lose the hand because the final card drawn on the river was pure chance.
Wow, yeah. The environment and chance multipliers just completely ruined a perfect decision.
Yes. And the unsettling reverse is also true.
Right, right. A completely reckless, mathematically terrible decision in poker can occasionally win a massive pot purely by dumb luck.
Exactly. A terrible business decision can succeed just because of a sudden, unpredictable shift in the market.
We've all seen someone do something totally foolish and get completely rewarded for it.
Oh, absolutely.
But as humans, we despise that kind of ambiguity. We hate the idea that we can do everything right and still have it fall apart, or that success might partly be a fluke.
Ambiguity creates cognitive friction. It's uncomfortable. And to soothe that friction, we simplify the equation.
We erase the multipliers.
Exactly. We cross out chance, we cross out environment, we cross out other people, and we just reduce it to decision equals outcome.
Wow. We take all the weight of a complex universe and just put it squarely on our own shoulders.
We do.
And this leads to a really heavy psychological space that's discussed in the texts. When we simplify that equation, we don't just say, well, the outcome was bad, my calculation must have been off. We move it inward. We say, I am bad at this.
Right.
The non-establishment becomes an identity.
This is the threshold where the danger is really the most acute. The psychological compression we talked about earlier hits its final stage. It goes from the conditions didn't align down to I failed, down to I am a person who fails.
The sources use a specific phrase here that I found really striking, transparent pain.
Ah, yes.
What exactly does that mean in this context? Transparent pain.
So transparent pain describes the invisible friction between the nonlinear reality of the world and our internal linear expectations of ourselves. The world is messy, right?
Yeah.
Conditions fluctuate constantly, but we expect ourselves to be these linear machines where input always perfectly matches output.
Right. I put in 50 hours of work, I should get a successful project.
Exactly. When our linear expectation crashes into a nonlinear reality, it hurts. And because we can't easily see the hidden multipliers like timing or chance.
They're transparent.
Yes. The pain feels transparent. We can't point to the external cause, so we just point to ourselves.
And to stop that pain, we lock down our identity. We decide we are just the kind of person who can't learn languages or can't run a business or just isn't meant to be in a relationship. We build a wall.
We do. And what is lost there isn't just self-esteem. What we lose are future trial possibilities. We literally shrink our world to avoid the friction. We stick only to known, safe paths.
So let me pause this again here because we have to keep reality in check, I think. Shouldn't some paths actually be closed?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if I'm 45 years old with bad knees, I shouldn't blindly keep trying to become a professional basketball player.
Oh, sure.
I shouldn't just tell myself, oh, the conditions haven't aligned yet while I completely ruin my body, right?
The framework completely agrees with you. The goal of this structural view is absolutely not to keep every single path open forever in some loop of toxic positivity.
Okay, good.
Legitimate withdrawal is a real and necessary option. The question isn't, how do I blindly keep hammering away at a brick wall? The true question is there actually enough evidence to close this path completely?
Have I genuinely tested the boundaries enough to know this is permanently unviable, or did I just experience one instance of non-establishment and shut the door myself out of ego and pain?
Precisely. Which leads to the practical application of all of this.
Right, because if we shouldn't compress non-establishment into this fixed identity, but we also shouldn't just blindly keep trying when things are truly broken, what are we supposed to actually do? Like, how do we actually examine the wreckage after a project falls apart without just, making excuses?
Well, the texts introduce a method called reobservation.
Reobservation.
Yeah. It is a deliberate process of unpacking that compressed failure word, but without justifying the past.
Okay.
The standard response is very linear, right? Failure points to one single cause, which leads to a final conclusion.
Right. I failed because I'm bad at math, so I'm done.
Exactly. Reobservation takes a different route. It takes the event of non-establishment, points it toward the differences in conditions, and demands careful reobservation of all those parts.
It's separating the mess into distinct categories.
Yes.
How does that breakdown actually work?
Well, reobservation asks you to separate the event into 5 distinct buckets.
What buckets?
What was confirmed, what is inferred, what remains unknown, what can be changed, and what can no longer be restored.
Okay, I want to walk through this with a tangible example because the difference between some of these, especially like confirmed versus inferred, seems really tricky for the human ego to handle in the moment.
It is very tricky.
Let's say I launch a new product, and after 6 months, I just have to pull it from the market completely because it's bleeding money.
Okay, perfect example. Let's run that through the 5 buckets. What goes into what is confirmed?
Well, the confirmed bucket is just the cold data, right?
Yeah.
We ran out of capital in 6 months. We sold 500 units when we needed to sell 5,000. That's indisputable.
Correct. Now, what goes into what is inferred? Because this is where we usually trip up.
Right, because my ego wants to grab an inference and treat it as a confirmed fact. I might infer that, well, the target demographic hated the product.
Yes.
But I don't actually know that for sure. Maybe they loved the product, but our marketing was so bad they never even saw it. Or maybe they liked it, but the price point was just too high for that specific economic quarter.
Which perfectly bleeds into the 3rd bucket, what remains unknown. Would this product have succeeded if you launched a year later? Would it have worked if you had a different co-founder? You cannot know those things. And acknowledging the unknown stops you from making these sweeping generalizations about your own competence.
It forces you to admit that you don't have godlike vision.
Exactly. And then we move to the actionable stuff.
Yeah.
What can be changed?
Okay, so next time I can change the supply chain, or I can hire a different marketing agency, or do much more rigorous focus testing.
Right. And finally, the fifth bucket, what can no longer be restored?
Wow, yeah. The time and the money I burned on this specific attempt, I have to accept that loss. I can't get it back.
Right. Walking through those 5 buckets
Mhm.
prevents you from reducing this incredibly complex ecosystem of factors
Yeah.
into the single crushing thought of, I am a failure.
You know, doing that manual breakdown, it takes a lot of mental energy. It requires really sitting in the discomfort of what we don't know.
It does.
And that actually brings up a really modern complication that the sources point out, because right now, I don't have to sit in that discomfort.
Oh, with AI.
Right. I could take all my failed business metrics, dump them into an AI, and ask it to instantly tell me what went wrong. I mean, people are doing this right now. They are outsourcing their postmortems.
It is incredibly tempting because of the speed. I mean, AI is excellent at synthesizing observable data and spitting out a highly plausible list of market analysis or organizational flaws in, seconds.
Right.
But the sources warn that this poses a really unique danger to the process of reobservation.
Because the AI only knows what we actually put in the prompt.
Yes, AI cannot observe hidden conditions.
Yeah.
It doesn't know about the quiet exhaustion the team was feeling for 3 months. It doesn't understand the subtle, undocumented friction between the founders.
Yeah, that human element.
It can't measure the nuances of human motivation that shifted halfway through the project.
So it can give me 100 logical inferences, but it can't tell me what it actually meant to the human beings involved.
Right. Sometimes, the true meaning of why a path did not become established only reveals itself years later through human reflection and lived experience. If we just accept an AI's instant, clean explanation, we outsource our own meaning-making.
We skip the work.
We do. We might close the book before we've actually extracted the true wisdom from the event.
That makes perfect sense. The pain is part of the process. So, okay, once we have done this hard work, once we have manually reobserved, the confirmed, the inferred, the unknown, and we've accepted what can't be restored, we still have to decide what to actually do the next morning.
We do.
What is the ultimate takeaway here? Is this framework just a highly academic structural way of telling us to, dust ourselves off and try again?
It's natural to assume that's where this is going, but the framework makes a profound philosophical distinction at the very end. It is not simply try again.
Okay.
The sources separate 2 distinct concepts, restoration and reestablishment.
Restoration versus reestablishment. Okay, walk me through the difference there.
Restoration is the attempt to return a situation to its exact previous state.
Like going backwards.
Right. It is the desire to put the shattered vase back together exactly as it was, to pretend the break never even happened. Reestablishment is fundamentally different. It is about creating a new form that can survive under present conditions.
I see, because the conditions are no longer the same as they were during the first attempt.
They never are. Let's step away from business for a second and look at human relationships.
Okay.
If a deep relationship fell apart in the past, and 2 people decide years later they want to try again, reestablishing it does not mean going back to how things were on day 1.
It can't. Both people have lived entirely new chapters of life since then.
Exactly.
They have different boundaries, they have different scars, different expectations. The internal environment has completely changed.
Reestablishment contains a beautiful paradox, really.
Yeah.
It requires both the preservation of the past, honoring the history, and fully acknowledging the pain of the non-establishment, and the act of refusal to simply reproduce that past.
Oh, wow.
You are not rebuilding the old relationship. You are building a new relationship with someone you happen to have a history with based entirely on who you both are today.
You are creating a form that can become established under present conditions.
Yes.
That completely shifts the paradigm of how we view our past mistakes. It means that just because a path closed under yesterday's conditions, it doesn't mean a new, evolved version of that path can't open under tomorrow's.
The non-establishment is no longer a final damning verdict on your worth. It just becomes a map of boundaries and conditions.
This leaves us with a really powerful lens to look through. The next time something in your life does not work out, whether that is a creative project, a career pivot, or a relationship, you have to ask yourself a harder question than just, why did I fail?
Right.
Did you just learn that your choice was entirely objectively wrong? Or did you simply touch a boundary, discovering for the very first time that this specific endeavor cannot exist under these specific conditions? Because if you can separate the event from your identity, you might find that under new conditions, that lost path could take an entirely different form.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.